Good evening. This tutorial will assist anyone who is having difficulty with any of the problems from today's assignment, which will be 2.8 in the gradebook. I know most of you completed 1 through 4 in class, but in case any of you did not, we will address these first. Whenever you see problems in geometry, there are two things that you want to make sure you always do. The first is you want to be sure to read all of the instructions and take note of any and all information that is given to you in the problem. When doing this, you want to get into the habit of asking yourself, what is this problem asking me exactly? You then want to be sure that you are answering that question. The second thing you want to be sure to do is draw a diagram if it is not already drawn for you and label it accordingly. Every student that asked for help setting the problems up today had the same thing in common. None of them drew or labeled the diagrams. Okay. So notice the instructions tell us to use the figure to the right to answer the following questions. So we're going to use this figure for number 1, and we need to use it for 2, 3, and 4. So what I did was I went ahead and drew it again here, here, and here. Okay? So you want to be sure you label all of your problems. So I went ahead and did that here. So DHF is 109. So from there to there is 109. FHG is x minus 8. So from there to there is x minus 8. And the one thing that you have to know is how many degrees are in a straight angle. From there to there is 180. So this plus that equals 180. So x minus 8 plus 109 equals 180. And then you would just solve for x. Combine like terms there, solve for x. Okay, and then for number 3. Number 3, this word right here, bisect, that's the key term right here. And anytime you see bisect, again, bisect means it divides something into 2 equal parts. So it could be 2 equal segments or 2 equal angles. In this case, we're dealing with angles. So HE is going to bisect DHF into 2 equal angles. So this angle is going to be congruent to this angle. There. No, watch out. All right. So then what we're going to do, so this is 5x minus 10, and this is 2x plus 35. We're just going to set them equal to each other, which we have here. And then we're going to solve for x, because it asks us to find x. And then it says that we need to find the measure of DHE. So then we're going to take whatever we get here for x, and we're going to plug it into the expression for DHE, which would be right here. So I have that written right there. So again, the way you set this up, this bisects this angle, which means this is congruent to that. So that means this equals that. So 5x minus 10 equals 2x plus 35, which is right here. Solve for x, get x, plug it back in here. And I actually wrote this wrong. I don't want to confuse you. So it's just 5x minus 10 right there. So we would plug whatever we got in there for there, and then that will be the measure of DHE. Okay. And then lastly for number 4, EHF, which is this angle here, is 2x minus 9. FHG is 3x plus 12 right there. So, and then it says EHG is this whole angle right here. So this is not right. This whole angle right there is 2x plus 78. So it's going to be this angle plus that angle equals the whole angle. So to set it up, we've got 2x minus 9 plus 3x plus 12 equals 2x plus 78. Combine like terms, we would end up solving for x. And then once we get x, we are going to plug it back in to EHG right here. So once we get x, plug it into there, and that's going to give us EHG. Okay. All right, so we did 5 through 9 for your warm-up. So that'll take us to the next page. And so here on the back, let's see. All of these problems on the back involve 2 parallel lines that are intersected by a transversal. Okay. Remember, parallel lines never intersect. An important concept to be sure to understand is that when 2 parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, 8 angles are formed, which you can see here. And each angle has a relationship to every other angle. So if you're given the measure of just one of these 8 angles, you should be able to determine the measures of all 7 of the others. Unless the transversal is perpendicular to the parallel lines, which in that case, all 8 angles would be 90 degrees. So what it means by that is, running out of room here, but let's say, for example, we had Okay, so if they were perpendicular, then all 8 angles would be 90 degrees. So in any other case, it's going to form 4 acute angles and 4 obtuse angles. So if you see here, acute, 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 and then obtuse, 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 and obtuse. Okay. So all 4 of the acute angles are going to be congruent to each other. And if you want to like mark in a congruent sign like this, so that's congruent, and that's congruent, so that means all those are congruent to each other. And then if we want to mark the other ones congruent, anytime you have more than one pair of angles congruent, the second pair gets double arcs like that. Okay, so that tells us that basically all of the odd angles are congruent to each other; they're all the same, and all the even angles are going to be the same to each other. Okay, so let's say, for example, one of the acute angles is 30 degrees. So let's say that angle 2 is 30 degrees. So then we can determine angle 4, because these two are vertical. Vertical angles are congruent, so we know that angle 4 has got to be 30. And then we can easily figure out these two, because anytime we have a straight line that's 180 degrees, so to figure out angle 1 or 3, we would do 180 minus 30, which gives us 150, and that's 150. And then we talked about something called corresponding angles. So if you look at this vertex, and there's 4 angles up here, so we've got this is the top left angle, top right, bottom left, bottom right. We're going off of this vertex. And notice down here, we've kind of got the same thing, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. So these 4 angles correspond with these 4 angles. So since this is at the top left, and that's at the top left, 1 and 5 correspond. Those are corresponding angles. And that's going to be an important vocabulary term to know. So another method to use is the dot method. And what you would do with the dot method, and we'll use this down here, is you just want to come down here and put dots down on all the acute angles, or it just follows this pattern just like this. So top left, bottom right, top left, bottom right. You can do the same thing here. Top left, bottom right, 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 top left, bottom right. Here, top left, bottom right, top left, bottom right, and so on. Top left, bottom right, top left, bottom right. Okay. So now all of the angles that have dots are going to be congruent to each other. All the angles that don't have dots will be congruent to each other for each one. Okay. So same, 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 same. Now, if so up here, what you're going to need to do is angle 1 is 145 degrees, and I just wrote this as another example. So 1's going to be 145. All right, so you would write in here 145, and then angle 3 is going to have to be what? 145. Very good. So that would be 145, and then you would just write in accordingly. So 145, 145. Okay, subtract 180 from, or 145 from 180, it'll give you these two, and then those 4 are going to correspond with those 4. You should usually be able to figure out those. Okay, now looking at the bottom, in addition to solving for x, what you're going to need to do is label if they are alternate interior, same side interior, vertical, or corresponding angles. And this is something we just talked about today, but it's a pretty simple concept. So I mentioned, in class that out of the 8 angles created by the 2 parallel lines, that the 4 angles, if we look at this, where do we go right here, figure right here, the 4 angles that are inside the parallel lines are called interior angles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are interior. And then the 4 outside of the parallel lines are called exterior angles. Alternate interior angles are interior angles that alternate sides of the transversal. So this angle right here and this angle would be considered alternate interior. And alternate interior angles are congruent, but as you can see, they're both obtuse, so we know that they're congruent. Same thing here. These two are congruent because they're alternate interior angles. So those are alternate interior, those are alternate interior. Then we've also got same side interior angles. So those are ones that are interior angles, but they're on the same side of the transversal. Same side interior angles are supplementary. So that plus that is going to equal 180. So if we look here, I've got a couple of examples for, where did it go? Right here. Okay, this is a good example of alternate interior angles. So this is an angle right here, and this angle right there. So they're interior, and they alternate sides of the transversal. So right here, these are alternate interiors. So what you would want to do is go ahead and label this alternate. You can just put alt-int, abbreviation, alternate interior, okay? And then, let's see, okay, down here. This is an example of same side interior. So they're interior angles and they're on the same side of the transversal. So these you would just put same side. Okay. And then what you also need to do, I don't believe there is any vertical angles, so don't worry about those, but there are a couple on here that are corresponding. Actually, there's going to be 2 of them, I believe. Let me see. 1, 2. Yep. So 2 of these are going to be corresponding. Okay, and then 2 of them are just going to be nothing. Okay, so you're going to need to label these, 2 of them corresponding. And you also need to find the measure of each variable. So what you need to do is, one second. You're going to have one of 2 types of formulas, or equations rather. Just remember, any acute angle is going to be equal to an acute, any obtuse will be equal to an obtuse, an acute plus an obtuse is going to equal 180. Or if you're using the dots, which we have here, so a dot equals a dot, no dot equals a no dot, dot plus a no dot equals 180. If you can just remember this, if they're the same angle, if they look the same, then you're going to set them equal to each other. If they're different, if they look different, so if one's acute, one's obtuse, one has a dot, one does not have a dot, it's angle plus other angle equals 180. So looking here we've got this angle right here, that has a dot and that has a dot, so they're going to be the same. That means they're going to be congruent, so we'll set this one up here. So it's going to be 4x minus 2 equals 3x plus 6. 4x minus 2 equals 3x plus 6, just like that. And then we would solve for x. That's all you'd have to do there. So here, okay, that does not have a dot. That does have a dot, so those are going to be different. So you're going to use that one. So we would have 125 plus 5x plus minus 10 equals 180. That's that one. Okay. And I'm going to set one more of them up, and then you guys can do the rest. Okay, so here, if we look here, okay, that's going to be obtuse, or it does not have a dot. Okay, this one is acute. It does have a dot, so they're different. So we'll have 2x plus 14 plus 5x plus 12 equals 180. So 2x plus 14 plus 5x plus 12 equals 180. Okay, so this should help you if you haven't turned in 2.3, 4, or 5. Most everybody's turned that in, but if you still have those, this will help you with that. Again, be sure to turn this in at the beginning of class tomorrow. I will have progress reports printed out for you at the end of class. I've still got a few more grades to put in. And then we will be working on something different tomorrow.